All right, the China-South Africa Economy and Trade Association is holding a job fair in Johannesburg to showcase Chinese enterprises offering job opportunities to South Africans. About 100 enterprises are attending the fair with the hope to offer 1,000 jobs to local applicants. More than 100 well-known Chinese companies based in South Africa are offering nearly 20,000 jobs over the next 3 years. SABC News reporter Liabo Setho is attending the fair, and we cross to her now. Thanks very much, Liabo, for joining us. Tell us about the fair.
Hi, Nompu. Yes, jobs. Particularly in South Africa, this is a very key word considering the high unemployment rate that we found ourselves in. A few weeks ago, we saw Setho releasing job numbers to the effect that jobs have increased by 0.4 of a percentage point, leading us to around 35.3% of unemployment in the country. Of course, this is very high for a country that's barely growing, where the economic growth is quite weak, and we're trying to find out what can we do. Government is trying this, the private sector is trying that, but countries and economies that are invested in South Africa, such as China, who we have great trade relations with, by the way, are stepping in to say we can absorb some of the people or young people that are currently in need of jobs. As you said in your intro, their plan is that in the next 3 years they would have absorbed about 20,000 jobless or young people who need jobs at this fair, which is an annual fair. Their idea is that they want to absorb about 1,000 people. We have seen here, if you were to come here, Nompu, you will see a lot of young people who are mainly from the Johannesburg or the Setho companies, or even the colleges, the Setho colleges. That is, they're hoping that through collaborations with colleges, they'll be able to absorb some of the young people who they can do things such as exchanges with. But one of the keynote speakers this morning was the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Mr. Thulasingesi, who talked about the plans of government in helping to deal with the issue of unemployment in the country. I've invited him over so that we can chat a little bit more about some of the interventions that they're doing as government to make sure that unemployment, the dent is made, and we see more people being employed. Minister Thulasingesi, thank you so much for your time. You've mentioned interesting things about what the government is doing to speak to corporates, particularly in order to make sure that they absorb more South Africans so that we can dent the unemployment. A recent case, of course, is the Huawei case, which I understand you've recently reached an agreement. Can you tell us more about what other interventions are you doing and which other companies you are targeting?
Well, the interventions which we are doing are very simple. We do the inspections, and we want to check if people are meeting the employment equity requirements, which we say, yes, we welcome the investment from outside, and it's very necessary for economic growth, but they need to comply with the labor laws. If they have taken people from outside because there's no skill in South Africa, they are using the scarce skill, it means there must be a particular program of empowering the South African and transferring those particular skills. But we also emphasize that it's important that in terms of the employment, they employ the locals. That's what we're saying. But also, so the issue of localization is very important. And we're also saying our inspectors are also exposing some of the malpractices. What we have seen also is a question of a number of the employers, South African employers, who are preferring to have what we call the non-South African nationals do not comply with the labor laws. And they distort the labor market by not paying the necessary agreements in terms of the minimum wages and even the basic conditions of the employment. And we're coming down very hard on those companies. And there are various punitive measures. Some of them, we take them to court. And like we've done with Huawei, we had to settle out of court, but they were very cooperating in terms of the package which we jointly came up with.
Let's talk about the floods that are currently happening in KZN, Minister. Of course, we are expecting that a lot of employers there will have a hard time rebuilding after this catastrophe is brought to book. You remember that in July also we had these looting, which has taken the economy of KZN back. As a department, how are you helping employers in KZN after this, or what is the talk among your colleagues?
We're facing a major challenge in the country. You'd remember that even prior to the COVID, our economy was going down. We were losing jobs. Came the COVID, we lost more than 1 million jobs. Now came those riots which we're talking about. A number of workplaces were destroyed. Unfortunately, again, today, as we're talking today, the big floods which have destroyed the infrastructure, which have destroyed life, and our solidarity with the people who have lost, the families who have lost their lives. This is very, very serious. Therefore, the rebuilding is going to be taking a lot of resources. It means, as a country, we have to invest some resources in order to rebuild in that part of the country. So, like we are done with the riots, we had to do a lot to rebuild, we had to interact with the companies, where we could be able to say, let's have a special temporary employment relief scheme for them. And that relief scheme did help some of the companies, but only if they are compliant. That's why we appeal even now. When things are still normal, companies must come forward and pay for their UIF, pay for their compensation fund, because there will come a day where they will need help from those particular funds. It's very important. So we're able to help some. We've not been able to help everybody because some of the people were not. But if they are compliant, they will be able to be helped.
Yeah, I can imagine that even now, this is something that you can be looking at, a relief fund of some sort going in. We've seen the death toll rising, more than 300 people perishing. We can imagine that the devastation is going to cause a lot more pain in terms of people losing their jobs. I'm sure that there is some sort of fund that your department can come up with.
I cannot be able to say anything at this stage. I know that there is a standing committee of ministers called Interministerial Committee looking at the disasters. That committee must already be meeting now, and then they will be able to make an announcement once and I think it's convened by the Minister of Kokta. They will be able to tell us, and I think the President might announce what interventions which will be made. So at this stage I cannot be able to say that, but I know that the matter has been taken up very seriously.
Minister, before I let you go, I'm sure your office has been quite busy and inundated with the emergence of Operation Dudula, because at the center of it is the issue of jobs. Your comment on it and all the aftermath that has happened due to it.
If you remember, about a month ago we released a proposed national labor migration policy, which is looking at this issue of dealing with these employers who are taking and exploiting those refugees coming from outside and who are displacing the South African workers. And we have said, in terms of the law, we have to deal with the expectations of the South Africans in the midst of high unemployment. That's one. But two, we are a human rights-based country with a constitution which emphasizes human rights. Once you are inside this particular country, you enjoy every right as per the Bill of Rights in the constitution. But also we have international protocols which we have signed about how do we treat the refugees, because those are human beings, they are not animals. And in terms of those protocols, they have to be protected. However, whilst we want to introduce quotas in various sectors, how many can be employed, what we cannot do is to ban them. The law would not allow us to do. So we're trying to change the law to talk to this issue of ratios, maybe 9-1, South African to the foreigners. Is going to depend on each and every sector. That's a debate, and we say that is a constructive way of dealing with it instead of being violent. We can't afford to be violent in dealing with this particular situation, because the confrontational approach can even lead to more violence, and we cannot afford to do that. That would be abuse of human rights and violating the human rights. We cannot be able. But let's have a constructive way of dealing with it. But not only us, together with those countries where the refugees are coming from. What we cannot run away from South Africa is more attractive than any other country in Southern Africa given its political stability and to an extent economic stability. And those people are not just here for fun, they are economic and political refugees.
Minister Nxesi, thank you so much for your time. It's really been a pleasure speaking to you. Nompu, we've had with us the Minister of Employment and Labour, Mr. Nxesi, speaking to us about a range of issues, the importance of this job fair with the China government, as well as issues here at home about what the government or the department, his department, can do in order to relieve the pressure that we see happening in the East Ruck, which is in Durban due to the floods. You remember that during the riots in July last year, government has had to step in to help, particularly with the issue of relief funds to help rebuild the economy of that province and that of Gauteng, of course. But this time around, we're waiting eagerly to find out what government will be proposing as we're seeing the numbers rise up exponentially. And of course, talking about other issues that have to do with the levels of unemployment. And that's all from us here at the Gallagher Estate in Midrand. And we will be coming back to you in the next hour with yet another guest from the job fair.